In 2016, Bend Studio, who were previously known for their Siphon Filter series, showcased their upcoming video game at an E3 event, which we would learn to be called Days Gone. Around 3 years later, in April of 2019, players finally got their hands on this PlayStation 4 exclusive. With action-packed gameplay, an incredible narrative, and a fitting score to back it up, Days Gone is one for the ages. Although sales weren't as expected due to early gameplay bugs and harsh criticism, the developers worked hard and quickly fixed these issues, but unfortunately, it may have been too late. Fast forward a few years to today, in 2023. Feeling like I'd experienced just about everything I could do in open world titles such as Red Dead Redemption 2, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Spider-Man, I felt it was time to revisit Days Gone and give it the opportunity I believed it deserved. I was glad I made that decision. Welcome to the video. You're listening to Phil of Philby Gaming, and today I'll be showcasing why I believe you shouldn't be missing out on this excellent title. We'll be breaking it down into different categories today in order to explain the features it provides in a little more detail. As you can tell from the thumbnail, as per usual every month on the channel, we are hosting a giveaway, so be sure to stick around to find out how you can enter. If you enjoy what you see, be sure to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with friends and family, or anyone you may feel would be interested in content such as this. All of the footage shown has been recorded within the first few hours or so of gameplay, as to avoid any major spoilers, but please be aware there may still be minor ones ahead from early on in the title. With that being said, I hope you all enjoy, and let's get into what we came here to see. Days Gone, going back in 2023. The first thing I want to look into is the story aspect of the game. Set in the fictional town of Farewell, Oregon, USA, based on the real-life Bend, Oregon, we begin our tale during a global pandemic, which has been brought upon by an unknown virus, known commonly to locals as the Freaka virus. The infection has turned the former residents into cannibalistic monsters, who mostly roam in packs with the sole intention of satisfying their need to feed. Stepping into the boots of one Deacon St. John, we are quickly introduced to the people closest to him, his wife Sarah and best friend Boozer. After Sarah has been injured, Deacon must find a way to get her to safety, which he does so by finding a chopper on a rooftop nearby. With not enough space aboard the helicopter for the party of 3, Deacon refuses to leave his best friend behind, feeling he won't make it on his own due to a leg injury, and he watches Sarah fly away to safety. Fast forward 2 years later, the world has now been completely overrun by the Freakers, leading to the nearing end of civilization and life itself. We quickly learn that the camp Deacon's wife Sarah was heading to was later completely overrun. No survivors. Deacon St. John and his best friend, William Boozer Gray, have turned to bounty hunting as a means to get by, working for several different camps. Living rough and surviving on barely anything, life is a challenge to anyone who survived the initial outbreak. The world of Days Gone is now full of bandits, marauders, gangs, anarchists, crazies, and of course, those infected by the Freaka virus. Feeling like they've had enough of life in this region, Deacon and Boozer make a plan to head north, in search of a better life. This is the opening premise to Days Gone, and with the intention of keeping the video as spoiler-free as possible, I'll leave you guys to experience the remainder of the story for yourselves. The game is often told in a series of flashbacks, giving us more depth into the characters. Deacon St. John, our protagonist in Days Gone, was born in the 1980s, right here in Farewell, Oregon. He had lost his mother at an early age due to unknown causes. As he became older, he served time in the military as a soldier in the United States Army's 10th Mountain Division, serving a full year in Afghanistan. During his time overseas, the Taliban would ambush the convoy that Deacon was in, causing his Humvee to tumble down a cliff into the waters below. Deacon would swim out to save who he could, but only managed to bring back a few. Suffering from PTSD after witnessing the death of his fellow brothers in arms, Deacon decided that his time as a soldier would come to an end. After being discharged, Deacon returned home, where he would purchase a motorcycle and spend the next couple of years drifting from place to place in search of himself, before finally returning to Farewell. Having a love of motorcycles, Deacon would land himself employment as a mechanic at a bike shop in Farewell, owned and ran by a gentleman named Jack, who just happened to be president of the Mongrels Motorcycle Club. After losing his mother at an early age and not being relatively close to his father, Jack would become a mentor to Deacon, even patching him in as an enforcer for the MC, due to his ability to handle himself in a fight. It was during this time at the club that he would meet William Gray, who was known to his friends as Boozer. Boozer was a little older than Deacon, having been born sometime in the 1970s in the nearby town of Adrian. He was taught by his father when he was young how to track game, and also spent time working on his uncle's farm. During the summertime, he would often ride around on an old dirt bike that his uncle had, thus discovering his love for motorcycles. Boozer would marry his high school sweetheart, a lady named Joni. Working as a driver of an 18-wheeler truck, he would soon find himself being patched in to the Mongrels MC. Due to his strong build, he would become the sergeant at arms for the club, acting as President Jack's right-hand man. It was during this time that he and Deacon would bond, becoming more like brothers than best friends. During a drunken joyride, Boozer and Joni would have an accident, causing the death of his wife. Members of the MC would arrive at the scene. Deacon would drag the surviving Boozer away, forcing them to leave the deceased Joni behind. The club will cover for Boozer, as to spare him a sentencing of manslaughter. Boozer would fall into a deep depression, even at one point attempting to drink himself to death. Deacon would join him, chugging away at the whiskey, telling him if he was going to die, he wasn't going to do it alone, because that's what brothers do. The pair became inseparable ever since. During Deacon's time at the MC, he would meet Sarah Whitaker after noticing her car had broken down on the highway. Sarah grew up in Seattle, Washington. Attending college to study botany, she would later be employed as a researcher for a bioengineering company called Cloverdale. Cloverdale would later open up a lab in Oregon. Sarah jumped at the opportunity to relocate here as to study the rare plants that formed around the region. Although polar opposites, Deacon and Sarah would immediately hit it off and eventually married. Of course, Sarah's family did not approve of this, but the pair didn't seem to care and weren't even concerned that the only witness to this marriage was Deacon's brother-in-arms, Boozer. Deacon would present her with his club ring as a wedding band, solidifying his commitment to her in a small church in Marion Forks. She would teach Deacon about the study of plant life, and in turn, he would teach her how to ride a motorcycle. Although not an official member, Sarah was both loved and accepted by the Mongrels MC. The trio would become a family, with Boozer referring to Sarah as his little sister. There are multiple supporting characters in the world of Days Gone, each with their own unique personalities and views on the current world. Deacon will discover new faces as well as old ones as he passes through the game, forming bonds with them. I can't show too much here without spoiling the title. The voice acting is done very well, especially between both Deacon and Boozer, who portray very believable characters and are easy to feel a connection towards. The bond between these two is incredible and well written, showing that the pair are easily willing to both kill and die for one another on a moment's notice. Now we've discussed the characters and relationships in the game, let's move on to our next category. The region of Farewell, Oregon is surrounded by beautiful mountains, lakes, rivers, forests, and small communities. It has a day and night cycle, as expected, but with a dynamic weather system that can alter the way you play. For example, when it's nighttime, the Freakers become tougher to combat as opposed to the day. The weather can also affect your gameplay heavily. Freakers will often be able to see or hear at a distance during a clear day, but if it's raining, they will have a more difficult time. This can be used to alter how you would approach a particular situation. With the game being set only 2 years after the initial outbreak, unlike games such as The Last of Us, which was 20 years later, many of the facilities are still intact and accessible. The buildings are still standing, which is something you may commonly not see in video games that are based around a zombie outbreak of some sorts. Although the world is seemingly ended, there is still access to things such as electricity and fuel, providing both power and resourcing. One in particular is very helpful while riding on the open road, but we'll discuss that further in the video. With the world falling apart, many survivors have resorted to becoming aggressive in a desperate way. There are several main camps around the world of Days Gone that, as stated before, Deacon can work with, but out in the wild you will find smaller gangs that will happily kill you on sight. Roadblocks can be set up, catching Deacon while he is riding, or bait can be laid out, causing him to find himself ambushed. Also, marauders and other gangs will use snipers, hiding them high in trees, waiting for their next victim. Performing side missions for the surrounding camps will have its rewards. Every time you do so, you are awarded with camp credits, which you can use to both purchase and upgrade your arsenal and vehicle. Most involve rescuing a hostage or tracking down a bandit of some sorts. There are also other ways to earn camp credits, such as hunting local wildlife, finding survivors out in the open and directing them back to camp, or killing freakers, and disgustingly collecting their ears, which can be used as a form of currency in the game. On top of this, you have the National Emergency Response Organization, or NERO for short, who are a militia-type force for what remains of the government. They play a heavy part in the story of the title, so there's not much detail I can give here, as to avoid spoilers. With no more businesses running, resources have become scarce, so Deacon must scavenge his way. This can come in the form of looting the deceased, searching buildings, or breaking into vehicles to obtain such things as ammunition, scrap, and kerosene or rags, for example, all of which are essential to survival. The world of Days Gone is full of life, and if you keep a close eye on your minimap, you'll never run short of things to do, see, or explore. While we're out exploring, let's take a look at the gameplay aspect of the title. Days Gone has a good mix of both stealth gameplay and fast-paced action. As I've stated earlier, you can choose to approach situations in a multitude of ways, whether you prefer to sneak in and take your enemies down silently, or choose to run in all guns blazing. There's a pretty good array of weapons you can pick from. Sidearms can include a pistol, stubby shotgun, or a mini Uzi. For your primary weapon, you can select from rifles to automatic weapons to shotguns, and you also have the special weapon selection, which can bring you sniper rifles, heavy machine guns, and crossbows, for example. As you progress through the story of Days Gone, you can unlock more weapons, and if you visit the merchant stores at any major camp, you can also purchase these if you have enough camp credits too. You can sometimes find makeshift silencers in cars by searching the engines and using oil filters, which will definitely come in handy when you're choosing a more stealthy approach. The hand-to-hand combat feels authentic, with enemies being able to both grapple you and team up together, leading to pretty good animations. You can both find and craft cocktails, which will grant you boosts in your health, stamina, and focus, with the latter giving you the ability to slow down time for a short while. to get those necessary headshots. Also, Deacon can use throwables in the game, such as Molotovs, pipe bombs, grenades, smoke distractions and proximity mines, all of which have their uses in different situations. During battle, you have the ability to use the surrounding environment to your advantage. Such things as car alarms can be used as distractions, drawing your enemies into one place or throwing rocks to distract them away from you one by one. Squeezing through gaps in a fence or small rock spaces can be very handy when combating hordes. There are so many ways to improvise and approach situations. You may even feel that it's more suitable to bring a mix of gameplay to each one. As you progress, you can unlock abilities in the perk tree. Some of these are very useful to Deacon, such as unlocking plant locations on your minimap, or as shown before, the ability to slow down time. In order to get around the world of Days Gone, Deacon will of course use his motorcycle. Deacon's drifter bike can be completely customized to suit both your playstyle and the terrain of Farewell. Different frames, tyres, engines, exhausts and suspensions for example are all upgradable, with not only different visuals but providing more traction, speed and durability for your bike. The appearance can be altered also, with more skins being unlocked as you complete missions and side quests or gain camp credits in general. Some of these are nods to other games, such as Horizon Zero Dawn, Uncharted and Death Stranding. Of course, to travel around Farewell, you're going to need fuel. You can refuel at campsites using credits or by finding fuel cans out in the open world, such as the rear of utility vehicles or Nero research sites. One pretty cool animation is to pull up to a fuel station itself and use the gas pump to top up. These are still intact and accessible because the pandemic is only 2 years in, as we discussed earlier. One thing we haven't really talked about yet is the main attraction of the game, the Freakers. There are two main types of Freakers, human and animal. Starting with the human variety, we'll begin with the most common, the Swarmers. When alone or in small clusters, the Swarmer won't pose much of a threat, as they can easily be taken down with a round or two, or even a knife kill if approached correctly. But if travelling in much larger groups, or hordes, they are significantly more dangerous. Communicating using pheromones, these hordes can travel together in their hundreds, creating a problem on a much larger scale. If you choose to try and tackle one of these hordes, it would be best to prepare a plan of attack and use your environment to your advantage. Swarmers are also known to form nests in buildings as a temporary resting area. Next, we have the Bleachers. Although very similar to the Swarmers, the Bleachers don a somewhat more pale tone. They are stronger than the average Swarmer, with up to around 40% more body mass. Easily recognisable by the shirtless torso, they tend to travel in small groups. The smaller variations of the Freakers are known as Newts. There's a somewhat sad tale about the Newts, as all of them are former children who unfortunately were taken by the Freaker virus. Although they tend to leave the player alone if they feel threatened, they can be violent and attack in numbers. They are relatively easy to deal with, but they can catch Deacon off guard by hiding in small places before attacking, such as the rear of vehicles. We also have the Screamers. The Screamer is always a female and can be identified by her frail physique and longing grey hair, giving off a somewhat ghostly appearance. When she notices Deacon, she will let out a deafening cry, not only stunning Deacon, causing a drain in stamina, but also alerting any nearby Freakers to his location. She will tend to stand still most of the time, waiting and listening out for any movement. Then there's the Breakers. You will easily separate these guys from the regular Freakers due to their overwhelming frame. The Breakers are not only extremely dangerous to Deacon, but also show no remorse when it comes to attacking other infected too. They have both increased stamina and strength, and take some doing to put down. The Breaker will charge at Deacon, so they are best dealt with from a distance. Lastly, in the human variety, we have the Reachers. The Reacher is by far the most dangerous Freaker on its own. It's not only faster and stronger than the Swarmer, but it's far more intelligent too. It has a charging speed of up to around 40 miles per hour and will happily hide in the shadows, stalking Deacon, waiting patiently for its moment to attack. There are three types of animal freakers. Firstly are the Runners. The Runners are infected wolves. Their incredible speed and vicious attacks can catch Deacon at any given time. Even when he's riding his motorcycle, the Runner will give chase, and when close enough, attempt to launch an attack and knock Deacon off his vehicle. Similar to the Breakers, the Runners don't discriminate on what or who they attack, whether it be humans, animals, or even other freakers. Next, we have the Criers. The Criers are ravens infected with the virus. Just like real birds, they will form their nests in trees or sometimes on power lines. They mostly travel in packs. Letting out a huge cry, they swoop down at an incredible speed towards Deacon, and after their initial attack, they quickly fly away before returning, making them a difficult target to hit. Finally, we have the Rager. The Rager is a mutated bear that is by far one of the most powerful and dangerous aspects of the game. They can sustain an incredible amount of damage and are best avoided if at all possible. They have a very good sense of hearing, spotting Deacon's location from a distance. The Rager bear is much larger than the average bear in the game. To summarise, Days Gone is, in my opinion, an incredibly underrated game that fell victim to harsh criticism due to a rocky launch. The story, which is told partly through a series of flashbacks, is very entertaining, and the character of Deacon St. John, played by Sam Witwer, is portrayed very well. The relationships between the characters are well written, especially the bond between Deacon and Boozer, which feels very authentic. The gameplay is both fast-paced and stealthy, respectfully when it needs to be, and the variety of weaponry you can choose from is useful. Different weapons for different situations, if you will. I love riding on Deacon's drifter bike, and even when I had an intended location in mind, there's quite a lot to get you sidetracked, keeping the game moving at all times. The world of Days Gone is an attraction, from the sunsets to the forests and the mountains, all aided by the dynamic weather system. The Freakers are more similar to that of World War Z, as opposed to The Walking Dead, keeping you on your toes and making you plan your strategies ahead of an assault. With the upgrade system, you can feel Deacon grow as a character, learning new traits and progressing. This, to me, is much more than just another zombie game. The combination of the varied Freakers, the combat, and the story of a broken Deacon after the loss of his wife all comes together well. For anyone who has yet to play Days Gone, or gave up on it after its rocky launch, I'd recommend giving it another try to see if you feel any differently about it. Now over to the competition. If you want your chance to win a copy of the game for your PC or PS4, plus a Days Gone t-shirt, simply comment below what game you are playing mostly these days. That's all you have to do. There will be 3 winners in total, which will be selected using a random spinning wheel. I'll be announcing the victors on both my channel's community page and on my Instagram at philbygaming, which you'll find both on screen and in the video description below. The closing date for the competition is Thursday the 13th of April 2023, so just a couple of weeks away. The winners will be announced the following day. Best of luck to everyone who enters. I hope you enjoyed today's video. You've been listening to Phil of Philby Gaming. If you did, be sure to hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share with friends and family or anyone you feel would be interested in content such as this. Make sure to enter the competition before the closing date and stick around with the channel as I do giveaways every single month. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.